to Adventuring Academy. My name is Brennan Mulligan. I am so delighted to have today the cast of Escape from the Bloodkeep. Please welcome Ify Nwadiwe, Erika Ishii, and Amy Vorpahl.
Hey! Hello, vile villains.
Hello, vile villains. Guys, regardless of anything else going on, first thing I have to say is spoilers ahead. This is going to be a recap, fun celebration episode now that Escape from the Bloodkeep has officially had its grand finale. But also, so we're so excited to have you guys back. Marcus, Lilith, and Effink here. And we're going to spend today both talking about some fun we had making Escape from the Bloodkeep, answering some audience questions about Escape from the Bloodkeep, but also I think talking about what Adventuring Academy is about in general, which is cool tips and tricks for enhancing your tabletop role-playing game at home. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, so good. So glad to be back with the gang. And it is just half of the cast. It's not the full cast.
Not the full cast. We don't have enough chairs and microphones.
And so we got picked.
You guys got picked. No, we may try to snag our lovely friends Reka, Trap, and Matt at some point in the future, and maybe if we figure out a way to get maybe like I don't know, some bleachers.
I do love that you were like, we've got the cast of Bloodkeep, and in my head, like my narcissism was like, yeah, that's right, we are the cast of Bloodkeep. but what's true is no. There were three very valuable other people.
You're the person wearing a tiara right now.
This is my effing tiara for the occasion.
We do have the cast. We don't have the full cast, but we do have the cast of Escape from the Bloodkeep here. Well, shucks, guys. This is so fun. The episodes have been coming out week after week. We have some episodes up on YouTube right now as well. It's wild to me to think this is the fastest turnaround any season of Dimension 20 has had from idea execution to release ever, which is like we started planning this I think in January. We had our character creation in January. This was shot in February and started releasing.
Yeah, because I remember getting the email over like really close to January 1st. Like definitely I was still on vacation and it was like, were y'all working? Like y'all are still doing stuff?
The answer is yes.
Like always.
I routinely get responses to be like, hey Brennan, here's the answer to your question. You sent this email at 3:30 in the morning. Are you doing good?
The freelance life.
So that's very, very fun. Shooting this, we shot this 2 days in a row, back to back on a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It was I think like it was not what I would call a slog. Everyone had to shoot as a slog.
Gauntlet.
It was a gauntlet.
No, seriously, I'm really excited to talk about it now and to see all the episodes coming out because that whole weekend was kind of a blur. We just kind of gotten back from Prague.
Oh yeah, it was a whirlwind.
Yeah, a whirlwind. And I'd gotten over being sick, and then I was like so in my head about working with these people who professionally funny and professionally tabletop. And it was I had the biggest imposter syndrome, and so through that whole weekend I was like, I have no idea what I did. I went into this fugue state, and it was fun, I think. So now watching it, I'm like, wow, we really made a show.
We absolutely did. It was wild. We had our cast cohesion day, so we do a session 0, which I recommend doing, especially if you're going to have cameras rolling. So we had a little session 0, no cameras rolling there, just us playing the characters, getting a feel for them. We actually that session 0 was a short little battle adventure in Karadkar, which is where you guys discovered Avinash and where Jessa and Jason were like, wow, the woods in this season. It was a little battle there. I remember it was a party in the Bloodkeep, and then we had like a flickering memory display of your guys' victory and the reforging. It was sort of like
we were like looking into the pool of memories and stuff, and we were like, oh man, I remember that that unicorn coming out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was so funny. But yeah, it set up some stuff for that, and it really helped us get a feel for our characters.
Oh, yeah.
But then actually, I kind of wanted to touch on before that, when we created our characters, you sat us down at the table and we were all like messing around because we're all friends, and then you started playing this epic music and doing the setup that you do at the beginning of the campaign, and just set the world and told us what it was, and we came up with our characters on the spot there because of that, just because you just painted this world so well. And so it's really kind of important to touch on this, actually, I think, because you built the world around our characters, which were built around your world, and all of it was sort of inextricably entwined very early on in the planning stages.
Yeah. I know. I do want to kind of plus one that by talking about, because I've so like my D&D experience, like if I look at the grand scape of thing, most of it has been on camera. I've done a few games, you know, outside of that, because I came into D&D. I think I said this in one of the BTS videos that may or may not come. I don't know, but it took me a while to get into D&D because, like, you know, I went to Catholic school in Compton, California growing up, and I'll always remember this list of things that had to do with the devil that we couldn't do.
Forbidden activities.
Yeah. D&D was on there, but also K-Rock was on there, which, if you don't know, is a local, like, rock station. Like, that basically plays the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That is the devil's music.
Yeah. So like, I always kind of like had this like weird thing. Also, I didn't have that many like nerdy friends, and you know, it's so funny because when we're at this stage in the world now, like I was at the bar with I met someone at a bar, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a nerd, and they were like, what type of nerd? Because there is like so many elements, and I never found like a D&D crew in high school. Like the nerds in my high school was like TCG nerds, so we were playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and then I started, after getting my like ass handed to me a few times, I discovered Magic the Gathering, and I was the guy who knew Magic, who brought school, and I was destroying everyone because I was essentially teaching everyone.
If he taught me Magic,
we
had a show where he taught me Magic.
Yeah, and as it reaches its like greatest popularity, I'm nowhere to be found doing so, but yeah, those were, and Zip Zaps, like I had like the Tinkerer, like we had lots of weebs, but we never had like a D&D crew, and it wasn't until, surprise, surprise, I joined an indie improv group called Cherry Spits in Orange County, and they were like, let's play some D&D, and I had my first match, and I was like, oh, this is just like the MMOs I play, you know, but it's like live on paper, and so that was there. Then like Rip Meltdown used to have a used to run the one
D&D
run by Cole and Dylan Sprouse.
Wait, what?
They ran the Meltdown.
Was that when
D&D.
Satine was jamming there?
I don't know,
funny.
but I don't think so. But I went there because I was like, oh shit, it's Zach and Cody. I'm gonna play D&D with them, and they were like very strict. You couldn't talk about Zach and Cody. Like they're like, we're here to play, and so it was crazy because that's when I really kind of started getting a taste of the culture of D&D, mostly because I had, you know, my game, like I've always been fine with like coming up with beginners, like I was planning on rolling a new character, but there's a guy who came like with a briefcase in his own bag, and like he's sitting there while like
you should have been like, you know, sir, this all happens in your imagination, right?
Oh, he was like so serious, and like they kind of like Proctor, and who the would-be DM was kind of like coaching a lot of new players, and goes, oh, I thought this was an advanced play, and like rolls out on us.
Good.
And I was like,
honestly, good.
Yeah, and it was so funny because it was a thing where like he kind of looked down on us, but I was looking, I was like, oh no, I know how to play, and I probably play better than you know, but. So then, you know, through Geek and Sundry and all that, then like almost all my sessions, except for one, and we had an improv group session go, and that was off camera, but all my other ones were on camera. But this long roundabout tangent goes to say that like going through different sessions, I really tell the difference when the DM is into it and doing voices. Like it seems so silly. Like I remember thinking about like, because, you know, at the time when we started doing our improv session, like I think I was aware of Critical Role, and they kind of blew my mind because everyone's into it. Like I was used to, like my play sessions before that was kind of just very matter of fact, a little metagamey, you know, and then that was the first time I've seen someone really live in these characters. So obviously you get a group of like improvisers at UCB doing a session, and it's hard not to, you go into characters too. Like it really is like, I remember, and I think in this D&D subreddit, someone was asking about doing voices and like, is that too much? It was like, no, like if you're with a good party, they're gonna yes and you. Like if you start doing voices, they're gonna do the voices, and it really does enhance the gameplay.
Voices started coming out in that first like pre-session 0 where we were all like coming up with character concepts.
Oh, I think it's so important for exactly that reason to like, because some of this stuff is about comfortability, right? And I think having a session 0 where it's like, oh, we're kind of doing a soft start to the game. We're like finding our voices.
I love that you say soft start. When the session 0 you ran, it was like, and then there's a Pegasus, and then also like every turn 5 new things would come out for us to fight, and you just so it was a
soft is relative.
It was immediately vicious and a hellscape.
but also the banter too, like the RP of it was so like, I remember Zanush the Dark Lord being like, oh, like how hard could pregnancy be? It's like easy, you know? I can do that.
Yeah, that's fine. But also it was the banter was right away. Also, Matt established his character as this like fail Nazgul right out of the gate. Even in session 0, he had a whole thing.
I don't know where the game came from of like us not noticing when Leland did cool things.
Yeah.
It was session 0. It was even before the camera started rolling. It's also so funny because now that the very final episode has come out, I'm always amazed at how incredible the dice are as collaborators, because Matt rolling such terrible rolls for the first couple sessions, like hitting these incredible nat 1 on his first death save after falling out of the sky.
Oh my god.
Which perfectly maps to his character's struggle with like depression up until the final battle, where all of a sudden Leland turns around and wrecks house with that cone of cold, that teleportation move. I also want to, it's like incredible how the dice confirm that piece of storytelling. Also, talking about like new players and people trying to gatekeep, like, oh, this was an advanced game. Reika and Trap, because we've all thrown down a ton.
Yeah.
Reika and Trap Trap had played D&D once or twice before. Reika, that was truly her first time playing, and they were unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
The one of my favorite moments is, it happened a few times where she was just very coyly like, should I be awesome? And all of us are like, yeah.
There's a couple things where she's like, this is dumb. This is really dumb.
But should I really wreck everybody?
Her with the balloon elf moving the volcano.
Oh my gosh.
Or even Trap going like, I'm sure this is going to be a waste of a turn.
Oh my gosh. So I was telling Brennan after this, is like the whole time I was like, you gotta talk to that lava. You gotta see what's going on in there. Like he planted that seed earlier in the story.
So
but
good.
like it's so funny, that thing in when you're RPing is like, Ify, the listener to everything, knows this. Marcus has no clue about that conversation. So like, and in my head I was like, well, I'm not gonna break this world to try and like hint it. I just trust in your team. And sure enough, like that's the fun thing. And it's funny in the sense that like, I kept forgetting that they were newer players, because like that is like such a like vet move of like, there's a monster in the volcano that you were just talking about earlier. Well, okay, I'm gonna talk to the volcano.
I think it comes from their training in improv and sketches, that like being able to listen well and react to situations immediately and make strong choices, which is what they did so well. Like Trap had this point of view and he stuck to it the entire time, and like everything he did sort of slotted into that. And then Reika is like strong decisions, like the Leland baby move was one of the strongest role-playing moves I've ever seen, and that comes from her background in comedy and improv.
Which I think brings us to the first thing I want to talk with you guys about today, which is
we're at the first thing.
We're at the first thing, like 15 minutes in. No, but before we get to audience questions, I want to talk about something that I would love to go around once real quick, because for our players at home, I have many times talking to other dungeon masters and game masters and storytellers on this podcast talked about the things that storytellers can do. And one of the things that keeps coming up is this idea of there's so little you can do as a storyteller if your PCs aren't deputizing themselves and giving themselves the authority to take huge swings and make giant story choices. And what is across the board true for everybody here on the podcast today, and in fact all of the Bloodkeep cast, our other three friends that are not here, is everybody perfectly hit the bullseye of taking huge story swings while completely supporting the larger narrative and everything going on with every other character. So let's go around and talk for a second. I'll give my audience submitted question first, which is, I mean, like, I won't even pick for you guys, but just off the top of my head, like inducting John Feathers into the crew, your final move of making Olag like tied to the room, fucking saying like, we're not gonna have a Dark Lord, we're gonna have like evil democracy, looking and making yourself the fucking boatman in the last battle. These are not only moves that were incredible to do, they were insane to often do in combat, or they also completely changed the narrative structure of the world. These were world-shaking moves. So if we want to go down and talk a little bit, like looking back at the moves you guys made, what does it feel like for our people watching at home? Is it daunting to grant yourself that amount of narrative authority as a PC? Where do you have to get to on a creative level where you're like, hey, I know that I'm a protagonist and that the DM is in control of the world. This is my moment to change the world.
I want to jump in before we talk. Before we talk about character moments, I want to talk about the DMing, since this is Adventuring Academy. One of the things I think that's important when you plan a battle out is there needs to be a modicum of teamwork in your planning. So it can't just be one thing, kill this guy. There's got to be this like basically opportunities set up for like 3 or 4 different things, and maybe this thing takes 2 people, and like we had to address each of the statues, and that kind of took everybody. But then there was also kill everybody. You know, like there was a bunch going on. The room falling apart. Everything had a moment to be. The boatman. There were just opportunities for everybody to play as a team, like an escape room, but to each do their own thing and contribute their own thing. So that was expertly set up, and I really think everyone should go and watch episode 6 to see how to build a really compelling group adventure.
I mean, I really want to talk about that, because I think one of the biggest questions I've gotten in the Discord was like, what made you like talk to the eagle? Like, why did you like talk to the eagle? And that's kind of always been my first like D&D 101 lesson that kind of taught me everything I needed to know about D&D was there was a fight going on outside of this room, and there was a door in front of me, and I kept attacking the door and rolling poorly, so I could not kick this door down. And then another character walked up and said, is the door locked? And it was like, roll perception, it is not locked, and they walk through. And that was all I needed to know, which is the sense of like, try everything if something isn't working. So like, Marcus was getting his ass kicked in that moment, and that was real hard for me because I usually play like a barbarian or a paladin, like someone who can deal and take a lot of damage. This is my first time playing something like a rogue who's essentially squishy, and you have to kind of use cunning and specifically I should have been using the Fog of War more to move around. So like, I'm hanging on by a thread, and I was like, okay, this isn't working. What else can I do? And the moment I realized the eagles were sentient, and also as a rogue I have high charisma, let's try and get this out of RP. And that's always just been fun to me, is just like, what are ways to win battles out of RP? And so that takes me back to the general idea of what you're saying, more to just kill people. I think, the biggest tip I have for any DMs is something that luckily a lot of my DMs are doing. have done is like, if there is a battle, it shouldn't be like the only way out of the battle is to kill these people. Use the stakes that have led to that battle, because then you lead to those RP opportunities. Like if these men are attacking us because they believe that we have stolen something from the throne and they hired mercenaries, then that's some good information, because, well, if they're mercenaries can be bought. Or is there something that they're aligned to that shares something with the players, so that if you can find a way to do it, or like my favorite thing too is like if the DM they've planned out the battle but hasn't really considered everything the players can do. Like we accidentally in one encounter had our like druid like one shot the whole match, because the way he presented the enemies, he did the like spiking thorns or whatever, and the enemies, he was trying to like run us down with a whole bunch of enemies, but to balance it out made them weak. So moving through the thorns just auto killed anyone. So
great.
And
well, that was the first battle. I mean, like in my head, every battle I was like, well, it's got to be epic. We're doing like Mordor, like the fall of Sauron. Like it's got to be, it's like mountain. So we have like the scary volcano is the first one.
Yeah, we immediately meet freaking the Gandalf equivalent.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately.
Gandalf, Elrond, and this was Lilith using, I think, like a second level spell.
It was a bonus action. Yeah, it was a bonus action, and I killed him.
You killed Elrond on a bonus action.
The word caldera. It was a big moment for all of us.
But it's wild because I think, to your point, to both of your points, I think the best thing you can do as a DM is make. And I'll say that this is true on a larger scale of like campaigns, if you want to get really big and kind of epic with it, but also down to your encounters themselves. Make a situation, make an ecosystem that is so vibrant and multifaceted that you have the capacity, even as the DM, to be surprised by what your players will do. And it's not thinking about it like a puzzle, because to me a puzzle is something that has a correct solution. Rather, it's thinking about like a playground. You're thinking about like, okay, there's lava, there's these big tall things, the bridges are rickety, there's a lava mog that can get summoned. Now this might sound like it can get overly complex, but the trick is to just make it intuitive. Like a thing can be complex if, from a bird's eye view, it still all kind of is intuitively making sense. Like, yeah, it's a big chaotic fight in a volcano. Because the trick is you are leaving open these, like I will often make combats for my players that I trust that I go like, yeah, I don't know how they're going to get out of that. Because they will surprise you. And then it's incumbent on, it's not like, because I think that you get into trouble when you're like, okay, there's definitely a way for them to get out of this, and it's this.
Yeah.
Because then they're not gonna figure that thing out. You're gonna kill them all, and it's gonna be really sad and frustrating. Better to go, here's a very complex, fluid, dynamic battlefield.
It's bad television or film writing, because you are writing everybody into a corner, and then you're like, you do it. You get out of the fucking corner.
Yeah, well, in some ways, like that's what you do if you have like a show that's on rails or something, because it's like there's like a point A and a point B, and they have to get there. Yeah. But that's not how people work in real life. They need an ecosystem to explore and figure out.
Yeah, and for me, it's the thing of like, okay, I know that the siren, I know that having like an airship battle over a volcano is incredibly dangerous. It's not my job to make your life easy.
Yeah.
I have to trust that 6 brilliant improvisers and role players with high-level characters are going to figure some shit out. But then it's incumbent on me to be able to roll with that and let you be creative.
And then also you trusted us to do that too, which is like coming back to sort of that original question that you asked, was that how do you?
That we're not going to answer, by the way. Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions. We have our own agenda.
I hear your question, and I'm going to talk about something completely different. But it is actually very related in the way that, like, how do you balance sort of like solving a problem and, and then what's good for the campaign? Because we talked about, like, in my episode of Adventuring Academy, like, how do you reconcile, like, what's right for your character with what's good for the story? And I think in the end, especially for live streams, you have to have the story, the overarching story in mind. So every single move that everybody made was like something very in character, like Marcus being charming and, smooth talking and making a contract with the eagle, or like the boatman, like her, that was such an incredible like in character arc. It was the end of her arc of her realizing who she was meant to be.
Right.
Or Lilith, you know, like seizing power, like which is something that she'd spent millennia sort of wanting, but
I
in
will
these
say
terms.
Lilith, like my Lilith moment too was sending her kids away before the final battle, and then her kid, like it was just such a. Of course, as a mother, you're like, get GTFO, everyone's gonna die, and then Brennan tearing up because.
Oh my God!
I can't believe I cell phoned. I can't believe. Well, wait. So here, everyone knows that my goal. There's actually a meme going around of me and Amy talking. The thing in our Adventuring Academy episode where you were like, the goal is to make your players like feel strong emotions, and I'm like, specifically cry for me. I want to make my players cry. So I was trying to get Erika, and then Erika got me. Like she was like, "You all need to go," and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have her kids do this really tearful thing," and everyone's got their own buttons. And for me, the idea of like family and being and someone trying to be alone and other people not letting them just fucked me right up. Of like, no, you're not alone. We're gonna do this together. It fucked me right up. Especially because it was like the sort of cynical, bratty teenager one who showed his little squishy heart in that moment.
He had such an arc in the beginning. He was such a jerk.
He was such a jerk in the beginning. But to look at that another way, it is like, I think that everyone had
so everybody had something like within their character, like very much like the forward motion of their story. But then everybody was also thinking like, how does this help the overarching narrative? How does this fit into Brennan's world? I mean, and that's just the most important thing that you have to remember.
And to me, looking at it, like all the individual character moments that were these big, and I want to get back to that question of like, what does it feel like and what does it look like to take big swings? Because the way you guys all supported each other meant that everyone's big swings were so honored and respected. So if we have a listener at home who's maybe like in a campaign, maybe they're not that experienced, maybe they're worried that their dungeon master's not that experienced and they don't want to like step on their toes. What's advice you could give, or just like sharing your inner landscape in these John Feathers, seizing power, seizing the crown of Gorgar, becoming the boatman? What's going through your head at that moment?
So my one rule whenever I play D&D with anyone is I'm gonna do anything the DM lets me get away with. So I'm gonna leave it to the DM, because I think that is a common thing I see with newer players is they don't want to break the rules, and it's because in gaming there's so many rules, and especially like, you know, if you're on the Go Gaia forums, you know, you had to deal with a lot of people like power RPing and making but like you, as long as you stay within the realm of your characters, like, you know, I'm not gonna do something like Marcus flirts with Lilith and then she falls in love with me. Like that is overstepping. Like I can attempt to flirt and do all these things that Marcus can do and let the dice and Lilith decide on how they receive that. And so that's kind
Missed
of
opportunity.
I know.
You know, lots of missed opportunities. I missed just shipping me and Leland, you know. It's
the two biggest ships in the Discord right now are Marcus Leland and Effing Soakbar.
I know.
Oh, no, sorry.
Lilith.
Lilith Soakbar.
Yeah.
Although, there's
I've also seen Effing Lilith.
Effing Lilith, there's Soakbar Lilith. It's like Bestie's ship, and then it's like Monster Parent ship, and then it's like the Marcus Leland ship is there.
It's like the guy who likes the asshole. Yeah.
Everyone was talking about that, and this is a good like kind of RP moment. But there's so much information within that like I was gonna play into that and like build this thing, you know, because I imagined like, you know, just from the jump, like Marcus is the type, like, you know, your typical pirate all around the realm, you know, like he's a pansexual type of dude, you know, he's you know, show Leland what's up, but also it was like moving so quickly that I was like, all right, focus on the story, because there's like it is that brain thing of like, oh man, like I think that's the hardest thing, is like you build so much like good nuggets, and then you also want to honor the story at hand and don't want to like take a step back to do this thing.
I think we were lucky in that we knew how many episodes there were, and we had a time limit of when it was going to be over. So in the fifth and sixth episodes, I could see a bunch of people, and myself included, being like, "Oh, it's almost over. What does sacrificing myself look like? Like how do I go out with a bang?" And so for that advice, because in a long running campaign you don't have those moments, I would try to get in the mindset of like, what if this is your very last session, and then go with that. Like, what would it look like for me to sacrifice myself for the good of the others, and see what kind of answers you come up with. Try, and I know, because Lilith winds up saving Effink. Like, she was going down, and like, nope, she's not. She like gets zapped up by or no, it wasn't Effink. Who did you save with the spider web?
Oh, there was I forget which battle this was in. There were a couple Lilith saved a lot of people.
Yeah, she saved a lot of people. Yes, I can't remember.
And the vine whips, the
vine whips, but
whips.
Someone was falling, and you were like, no, they're not.
Well,
you just almost got Marcus, but Marcus still fell away.
That's right.
But you did save Old Pickering, thank God.
Oh,
yes. For you, yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Is knowing timelines.
Yes, knowing timelines. And then if you're really hankering to do something big, think about it as if it is your final stand. And even if it's not the end, you're going to do something. Maybe you'll die, but argue. Like, I've just seen it happen so often. Of like, the other players will not want you to die, so you will go do this grandiose thing, and then you still won't die. So you will still have that memory and that legend.
And I think that, to just respond to that, and then I want to get that answered, I think also that something great about what you just said, Amy, is when you take a big swing, you're like, my character jumps into the vortex. They put the crown on their own head. They use the artifact they've been trying not to use, whatever. That there is a certain amount of surrender, that in these moves you're like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work or not.
It's the part of your brain when you're jumping off a cliff into the water, not off a cliff to your death, but like, those big, long jumps. And it's the part of your brain that you feel it turn off, because every part of your body's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And then you just have to somehow turn that, like, flip the switch, and then you're jumping, and you know it's going to be fine.
Exactly.
I think one thing that really comes up a lot in those moments is, what are the consequences in this story? I mean, because there will be consequences, and whether it is like your character is saved by the party in this really dramatic way, and you have a moment, or you die.
Remember, I'm so sorry. You killed the boatman. That's what I'm thinking. You like zapped him up.
Oh yes, you put a web around him. It was once again using a low-level bonus action spell. It's like, I move him 10 feet and then let go.
Yes, it's like you had so many voids, open voids for me to play around with.
Careful with voids. That's my tip for this episode.
Sorry to interrupt. No, that was what happened.
So true. Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, the consequences of your actions, and how grand they will be, because even if it is like your character dies and it's so compelling for the narrative, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because and a lot of times, you see, if you have these ongoing campaigns, like, it's hard to take a swing because you know that there are consequences, and that's kind of fine too, because what are you willing to live with those consequences?
Right. In a longer campaign, big swings can come fewer and farther between, because we knew we had 6 episodes, as you were saying. So it's like, we want to see conclusion and arc. In a home game where you're playing like a couple hours a week and it's going for a while, you can it might up the pace or change it to have those huge swings every episode. Before we move on, I want to address one thing about ships, by the way, because we have a lot of people in the Discord that talk about ships and that rules. I have a theory, and I want to see if you guys will back me up here, because we have a lot of people for Dimension 20 that ship our PCs, and so far we've only had PC NPC romance. We've never had cross PC romance in a game, and I think that I know the reason for that, which is subconsciously we have an understanding that the other PCs at the table aren't going anywhere. And it's similarly to the reason that you don't flirt with people that you work with, because I think this is true. If you flirt with an NPC and it goes south, that person can disappear. You're like, I'm never going back to that tavern again. Yeah. If you flirt with another PC and the vibe is wrong, all of a sudden it's like, well, we still gotta fight the nightmare there, King. Ooh, boy. So I think for some of our viewers, if you're like, why don't these PCs ever hook up? I think that even in your home game, you should be very wary about inter-PC relationships, because those are the heroes of the story, the narrative camera of this. You can't have a one-night stand between PCs, or you can, but then you're dealing with the awkwardness of following these heroes.
Consequences.
I will, yeah, maybe be wary, but if it's a thing, if it's gonna happen, like maybe the two people should discuss ahead of time, because it can get awkward, but it also can get fun.
Yeah.
You know, like it can get awkwardly fun if that's the thing, or it can get even more dire if they actually are in love with each other.
I've definitely had I have had inter-PC relationships, and there is a lot of trust that needs to happen for that to work. But I think especially in closed campaigns where with Dimension 20, we know how many episodes we're going to do ahead of time. Yeah. I think that there is an element as a player where if you, let me put it this way, everyone knows they can flirt with Brennan and it's going to be fine. You know, like that's the dungeon master. Flirting with NPCs is very low risk. I think flirting with and establishing romance with another PC just is higher risk, which is why you might not see it.
Yes, so let us know if you are P-sexual or not.
I think my own thing is like, no matter which path you go down, I think it is the one thing I would want is just you to honor that move you made, because I could also see, like, you know, PCs hooking up and then just going about the campaign as if nothing happened. It was like, no, y'all gotta have that same tension. I'm gonna need some sass going when you see her flirting with a goblin. I want that beef to be there. Like,
I mean, that's the thing is like there's narrative consequences. Sometimes those are super fun to explore. I've been in a lot of campaigns where there have been like PC romances or PC hookups and stuff, and like you just have to play them out, and that can be fun too. But it's like an extra thing to think about. And so for our campaign, since it was so short, we didn't have time to like think about anything. And also in game, it lasts a day. I think it's like in like the time crunch lasted a day.
Yeah, Bloodkeep.
So the idea, Bloodkeep was a day. So it's like the idea of all these people being co-workers with each other for millennia, and then suddenly within this
just like
day,
we gotta fuck. We're all gonna die. Yeah.
I've been for romance. There isn't a D&D mechanic for it, and I would recommend not making a mechanic for it because it should be. I've been actually in the situation where at a table. As a player, guy at a table read me a poem, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not buying it. And the DM was like, what? Roll it. Will save. This was 3-5, and so I was like, oh, will say no. Like my answer is no, and he's like, the die will determine it, and it was so. Don't make a mechanic.
That's very uncomfortable.
Make it the player's decision.
It should totally be narrative, and I think too. The reason I say the coworkers thing is there's a great rule that also is about like why you don't flirt with retail workers, why you don't flirt with bartenders. The rule is
power dynamic.
The rule is never flirt with somebody who can't leave. Don't flirt with someone. If you're like trapped in an elevator with someone, don't flirt with them. Because if they're uncomfortable, now they can't leave. If I'm bartending, I bartended for many years. If I'm bartending and you hit on me and I'm uncomfortable, I work here. I can't go anywhere. So I think that is something to bear in mind about PCs is PCs can't go anywhere. You're in an adventuring party together. So if you're trying to establish romance, that's a reason that I think some people are like, I want PC ships. And it's like, cool, understand how intimidating that is to initiate because in a weird way, at the table, you can't go anywhere. With my characters, they're killing NPCs, let alone flirting with them. Like my characters are disappearing and vanishing all the time. I don't have an attachment to just one character, so I think that's why it's lower stakes to flirt with the DM.
But keep shipping everybody.
Ship
away.
Because like there are some undercurrents there and everything. Yes. We won't tell you which ones are canon or not.
But we actually reveal a potential ship in the BTS footage. I don't know if it's come out yet. Remember the thing I told you right after the last session about the guy?
Yeah, you actually told him.
Yeah,
oh, that's so
that made it into the BTS footage.
Oh, that's
go check out the BTS footage.
Love that.
Moving on to audience a bit. Guys, if you're watching this on Dropout, congratulations. You're part of a very cool preview of this thing. You get to watch it before anybody else. If you're watching this on YouTube, you could have watched this weeks earlier over on dropout.tv. Why didn't you do that? And also, the only way to submit questions for this podcast is to submit it on our Discord server, which is only for Dropout subs. So thank you for subbing to Dropout. This first one comes from Bowerbird. Thanks, Bowerbird.
Thanks, Bowerbird. We're over on Dropout too. They let us on. They let us into the Dimension 20 channel. All of us.
Yes, all of you guys can talk to Erika, Amy, and Ify all over on the Dropout Discord.
On the Discord.
This first one's from Bowerbird. Kudos to everyone for building and playing such compelling evil characters. Any thoughts or tips on doing that well?
Oh man, so I've been in campaigns where there were evil NPC or evil PCs, and it was just not pleasant, just because it's so easy to get self-interested, to be selfish. It's easy to justify selfishness at the table if you play an evil NPC or an evil PC. But what we did, I think, was gave all our characters stakes. And like, sure, we're monsters and want to, you know, kill all that is good and swallow the light of the world. But also we care about family. We have these issues, like we were grounded in real issues. For Lilith, it was like I came up with the idea of her because, you know, of Ungoliant in the Silmarillion. She's like so rad and she does all these evil things. And then there's one sentence about her suddenly having children and then she disappears from the Silmarillion and like is lost to the annals of Middle-earth time. And I was like, that's crappy. Like, I want to see what happened to her after she had a bunch of children. And so, like, sort of grounding her with, like, family and her friendships, and just like giving everybody's stories stakes, I think really helped.
I think it was something we were talking about before the show, that evil is so, I guess, transcendental. It transcends being a butthole, right? Yeah. Like there's being a butthole, and then there's evil, and so you don't have to be a butthole if you're evil. Like, you
can lead an army to swallow the world's men and elves and eagles
and still be hungry
and not be a gaslighting asshole.
Yeah. like you still have natural grounded wants and needs, and to acknowledge that being part of a council is better than being on your own, but you just are also evil.
Yeah, I think the way I kind of like visioned it is, first off and foremost, I want to point out that the way that you were saying your last evil campaign went would have actually serviced the finale that Brennan originally wanted.
Can we have a moment where did you tell people what you thought was
that's in the
happen?
BTS footage. I thought the last battle, Olag and Hobart and Fraud, none of those guys were supposed to come back. The last battle was supposed to be PvP for the crown. Egg on my face that I thought 6 bad guys might do bad stuff. I thought that might happen.
But we all love each other in the name of evil.
I know, it's so funny, and I think, you know, it definitely comes from the elements of comedy within Bloodkeep, but there also is, like, you know, if you truly shift the POV, if you truly like shift the POV the way we did, then we wouldn't present ourselves as evil, because we just have a difference of opinion. You have the one people who thinks that the realm of men and elves should live freely, and you have another set of people who believe no, they should die. And I think that's what it came from, is that we were grounded, but like all in all, like we are like searching for a common goal, and so that allowed like, I think when people think evil, they just think, you know, it turns into the Purge very easily. Like, what are some things that I would never do that I want to do? And I think
it's not vice. It's evil. Yeah. And you set it up so well, Brennan, because it's not just evil. It's the biggest failure of all evil ever, and that's where we even begin. So we're already, you know, regardless of what the good people know, we are the underdogs, just fighting to just get a holding ground once again.
That's being the underdogs was a huge step, and there was just so much party cohesion because we had these shared goals.
Yeah, I think these characters, funny to echo Trap here, but when he says in episode 5, I think the best thing that ever happened to us was falling out of the sky. It's kind of an element of truth to that. So first of all, I'll say number one, cracking an evil campaign is really hard, and I think this campaign would be totally different if Zalnaj doesn't have his crown destroyed and blow up, because watching bad guys dominate is no fun at all. Because and literally the whole impetus for this thing was thinking about an evil campaign, because I was basically like, there's a bunch of people, you guys, Matt, that are like my favorite D&D streamers and players, and I was like, if we can get them to come play a game, I want to use their voice acting chops and their comedy chops to do something a little bit more high fantasy. Like our first season was sort of high school AU, and this one I was like, no, I want to set it in a real fantasy world, but what's a funny comedy for that? And I was like, ooh, like evil PCs is fun, but it's never actually. I've played characters that are evil, and when they're actually going around being evil, you start to feel bad. You're like, I don't want to like murder innocent people. This sucks. So it's like, okay, when are bad guys at their most relatable? And immediately I was like, bad guys are at their most relatable right when they lose. I don't care who you are. I know that the Galactic Empire is evil, and I want them to lose. But the very second Luke shoots the torpedo in the exhaust port, and I see that they've lost, part of me goes, that's a fucking raw deal, man. Like
that was a lot of work they put in.
They put a lot of work, and like they lost on some bullshit.
Yeah.
Like same with Lord of the Rings. It's like, come on, Frodo and Sam, you can do it. And the ring goes, and blam, the tower falls, and you're like, some fucking loophole Hail Mary bullshit.
There was no military strategy through any of it.
Well, I think one of the times I felt this recently is I was playing Far Cry New Dawn, and I played 5, so I was like really attached to the story. And then New Dawn, you have these twin sisters who are part of this like essentially like evil collective who are taking over the post-apocalyptic thing, and they're doing heinous shit through the whole game. Like it's really good writing for me because I hated them, but there's a point at the end, like before you fight them, and then they do a flashback to like when they were kids, and just you kind of learn that like their dad had this like dog eat dog world, like, you know, the strong survive, and this is the post-apocalypse, and they kind of like left their mom behind, and mom was like, don't be your dad. And then you do this fight, and you see the twins. One twin dies. Sorry, this is also spoiler for
wow.
If you knew, but it's been out for a while. So, but like, you know, you like the older twin is like, you don't get to die before me. Like, and like it's this real touching moment. And I was like, man, I've hated these people the whole game, and right now I feel for them. And it kind of took me back to like, and kind of the inspiration from Marcus, and one of the kind of best advice in storytelling and writing I saw is like a good villain is just a hero who goes too far. Like, and like it really is like, you know, someone who truly believes in their means and will do anything, hurt anyone to make it happen. I think that's why, I mean, okay, you might as well just mute till you see me stop talking. But like when you see, you know, a certain dragon princess in a certain HBO fantasy, and people got real mad when I was like, oh, I knew from the beginning she was bad, because anyone who seeks to do good with the intention to rule is like, you are not truly good. You've liberated these towns because you want support for you to rule. Like you cannot, it is just like, it's almost as if you like freed some slaves and then created some type of prison institution that would keep them enslaved for different reason and bullshit laws that you came up with. It's like you got rid of slavery, but you never got rid of it. Like that's kind of how I felt with Daenerys. Like I was like, there's something to, and also just her like, I was sitting here.
Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah. But there is something to like, you know, that's why I felt she was a good villain, is because you want someone who's righteous, who can like get you on their side, because when you're just like, I want to kill everybody because that's the bad thing to do, that's not a good villain. But if you're like, I'm going to take down Wakanda and kill all of the white people in the world, you're like, oh, I see why you want to do that. I just don't want you to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
While you're describing Daenerys, it does make me think we weren't, any of us, Daenerys. Our Daenerys got killed, so we were the Missandei and the Grey Worm, like of the party, which meant that we were like, yes, we support. Oh, now we have no idea what to support. We can't make any decisions. So it's ultimately it was a really, really interesting dynamic.
I love that. And I love everything you're saying too, because I feel like, number one, what I love about the moral of Bloodkeep is that these are all bad guys. evil, by the end of the 6 episodes, is actually a better version of evil than evil was at the beginning. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, listen, we are intent on destroying the forces of life. We're going to do it democratically, and we're going to support each other while we do it.
Yeah,
like, it's like, which honestly, there's a part of me as like a philosophy-minded person that I'm like, you know, it'd be better if there was no evil in the world of Elna, but it actually is a small win that evil is slightly better than it used to be. Like, I'll take that. And the second thing I will say, too, for people that are, because we've had some interesting questions about sort of the morality of Bloodkeep. And I will say that if you're looking for like deep, logical, and logistical morals in Bloodkeep, you have to remember that this is a comedy. And what I mean by that is this show is very much in, like you will find no one that supports real-life villains less than me. Villains are bad. Punch Nazis. What I'm saying, though, is this is in the vein of Addams Family. This is in the vein of comedy. And I think that we tread a line that Addams Family also treads, which is the ways in which we are monstrous are so cartoonish. Yeah. And as we get more grounded and human, you see that we're actually good.
It's the way that, like, for kids shows, you're not allowed to write something that a kid could actually feasibly do. So that's why Peter Rabbit, when they were like, oh, he's allergic to blueberries, have some fucking blueberries, that was really that was seen as terrible, because a kid could hear allergy and be like, oh, they're allergic, that means I throw that thing at you and actually cause damage. So but and this is Peter Rabbit, where it's all farce and whatever, but yeah, slingshotting an actual human person like through a window so that it bowling balled into, you know, the cliff that just happened to be, and some briar patch, whatever. It's like, any cartoony, or like a huge weird hammer that no one could actually even lift, you can write that kind of stuff.
I would also even argue that even though, like, from our POV it does seem like, man, this is a good version of evil, if we were to flip the POV and have the forces of light look at what we've done, it would be terrifying to them. There's like the evil guys are now more organized. They have a system. They are listening to each other. They're probably not going to have some Deus Ex Machina item that you can throw into the lava. Like, the evil is stronger, and I think that's why I mentioned, like, I think it's fun to see point of view, because it's like movies when you are like following the bad guys, like like a Despicable Me. Like, he is like an evil dude, but it's like,
oh my gosh, cute. John Wick, a murderer.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all like, go.
Yeah. He is a straight up assassin. Like, there was a moment where, like, at the top of John Wick, when he's fighting these guys, and it's funny because I could tell it's been a while since I've seen the last John Wick, because I was like, oh man, these guys are just following orders, so he's probably gonna, oh no, he's murdering every single one of them and leaving no prison.
There was a lot of murdering of perfectly innocent people in our campaign, but we drew the line at like lies and sexual harassment.
Yeah. Like, that's my point. Is that I think the comedic logic of if you're at home scratching, you're like, these 6 characters are villains. Why am I rooting for them? Is because there actually is a metaphysical, almost philosophical joke over the whole thing, which is we are all monsters and demons, but again, there's a certain line, and it's a fuzzy line. There's a certain line where it gets day to day enough where we become good. Like, we are kind to our friends. We do not gaslight. We are not emotional abusers. We gas each other up. We don't gaslight each other. And then
we use sensitive nomenclature.
So that is
we apologize.
In the same way that you're like, oh, the Addams Family are chopping each other's hands off and they have guillotines and weird stuff, but like Morticia and Gomez are deeply in love.
Couples goals.
Yeah, couples goals. So I think that you can't find a real world moral logic in Bloodkeep, but you can find a comedic logic that reinforces why we love our vile villains so much. I'll go. This is from Rain Solo. Thanks, Rain Solo.
Hey.
Who is, and very important parentheses was, because a lot of people died. Who is / was your favorite NPC and why?
And definitely going to be Avinash for me. Like, I feel like they really did cut down how much we were laughing when you wanted to protect your bones, and there's just like one of my favorite like kind of things in comedy is when someone is saying something so wild, so insane, but in a just totally calm voice as if it's normal. And like just that whole beat and back and forth, I was just dying the whole time.
All of your NPCs were so fantastic in any game that I played. That is just like they come the most alive for me. And so like the kids just like having that moment, like I never cared so much. And the problem is that for the summons, those kids, they were supposed to be the summons. And like normally when you're a druid, it's like there's these spectral animals or whatever, and you just throw them out there until they get vaporized. But it was my kids. It was my kids, and so we cared so much. And there's that moment where Jason falls, and we're gonna cry, and then he came back up, and it was just the biggest roller coaster. So I loved the kids, but yeah, you must have left some stuff on the cutting room floor of us laughing about Avinash, because I remember crying at the table. I was laughing so much.
I remember being convinced we had to solve this fucking riddle. Like, this man knew something and he was hiding it. And if we just saved his bones, we would all be enlightened.
I knew, like, storytelling wise, the right move was to just go back to the Bloodkeep and have him do the crown and like see what happened, but just we could not get over the bones. We could not let it go. Like,
that was not something
he was so like it was so specific. It was so specific, and the delivery was so good that we just got hung up like in world on that PC.
You guys want me to drop a crazy thing right now?
Yeah.
You were never supposed to find Avinash. You were never supposed to get to the Bloodkeep. Can I tell you? This is a real, true behind the scenes peek at what's going on in my head while I'm DMing and what all DMs are doing in their head while they're DMing. I knew that the next fight, because we pre-make our sets for Dimension 20, and this is what I mean by the fact that like my games are never on railroads, but I do have to hit these battle sets. So it's this weird mix of like honor everything PCs do. Also, I have to figure out how to use these thousands of dollars set that Rick and his whole team, the whole production of the show is like making these sets. So I'm like, so here's what I did. I saw Matt do his thing where he's like, I roll a nat 20 on this Arcana check. I know the next fight has to happen on the Siren. So what I do is I say, there's a guy in Karadkar who knows how to make a crown, thinking Marcus is going to jump on his stone, call the Siren for you guys to go to Karadkar, and the fight's going to happen on the Siren. And who knows if you'll ever make it to Karadkar once the fight on the Siren starts. Maybe the ship survives, maybe it doesn't, maybe it survives but only enough to land the ground for repairs. Who knows, right? So I'm like, great, got it. And then old Lilith goes, oh, I've got an infinite distance teleportation spell. We can all go. And that's a moment as a DM where you get to see what you're really made out of. because an amateur DM will go, no, the game's called Escape from the Bloodkeep. I'm not going to let you escape from the Bloodkeep yet. Or you go, huh, well, fuck me. And you fully improvise a place you never intended to go, the things that are there, and an entire character named Avinash that you pull fully out of your butt. Just right there. So that whole bones thing.
I remember he was pulled out the river, not your butt. He was pulled out the river.
And the fact that, like, we were just obsessed with that, that dude. My favorite NPCs are come in a package deal, a little bit of combo meal. If we're the A team, my favorite NPCs are the B team, and it is the I can't remember their goddamn names, but Boner Torturer, the door dudes,
Hubbard and Fraud,
Ipskix, Master Ipskix,
Master Ipskix, Hubbard and Fraud. The door daddies, and the last one, the guy who just wanted Olag, who just wanted to die.
That was so. I did not expect him to be such a thorn in our side. Yeah. He just.
Really? You didn't? From the literal first interaction you ever had with anyone, this guy is up your butt so hard.
Oh yeah, Olag hated Marcus, and he hated Marcus. He's like, fucking contractor comes in, and he's like, I have devoted my life to.
I like the idea too that you kept killing him and bringing him back less intense.
Oh yes,
Let some steam off. Yeah. Well, Oleg was not. Oleg was an optional villain for the Siren fight. Like I was like, oh, like we'll see how they're doing after the volcano. You guys were actually doing pretty well after the volcano, so I was sort of like, okay, because I knew they were going to be like, I knew how intense things were going to be, so I was like, maybe after the volcano, I'll throw Oleg in on the Goblin War Zeppelin. He'll show up. He only showed up in the last fight because you guys spent all of episode 5 being like, whatever we do together. And I was like, once again, fuck me. So I need to make this last fight. I'm like, because here's the thing. Again,
eat it, Brennan.
An amateur DM would get you guys to the Fountain of Blood and go, I don't care that you're all friends. It's PvP. You all have to kill each other because that's the rule. Knowing that it would be so upsetting and so fucked up and not fun at all. So that's a last minute move where I as the DM go, I'm well within my rights to have the spirits of ancient evil say only one can claim it. And then what happens is you guys go, cool, we're not going to fight. We're going to pick one of us. And then I go, the spirits tell you have to fight.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Change your world on the fly. The best advice I can give, change your world on the fly. No, make it different. It doesn't have to be the way you thought it was going to be. Make it something that your PCs will love.
I've had a bunch in games. Characters will be like, oh my gosh, the one where they're sleeping together, and like immediately you're like, what the where did that know there? And then immediately you just have to be like, yeah. They're fucking, yeah. Like, yeah, you're right, and that somehow makes sense, and I didn't think of it, but yeah, like, and it's like if you want the players to be invested in the world, let them write it, like let them have a say in like what actually is true.
I love that. We only have time for one more. This last one comes from our beloved Rick Perry, the maestro himself. Our head of art. For the cast, did playing in the D20 show environment affect you differently from other games or shows you've played on? If so, how so?
Absolutely, and I definitely want to shout out Rick and the art team.
Sabrina, Max, Shane, Nate, all our awesome artists.
Incredible sets, and that was what was wild, and we discussed this too, about what Dimension 20 does that we've never really gotten to do since we were all on live shows that just happen and are happening in real time, is you all leaned into the production value. So having these like vast sets that you could cut to and then show the web coming out of Lilith, or the top down of the gravity flip, and just having sort of this set, everything, this like ecosystem and everything laid out was something that I'm not used to. So that was wild. And yeah, again, shout out to the team for the minis. So the minis that they worked on with Hero Forge, and shout out to the Hero Forge team.
Hero Forge.
Tegan, I know, and Bev and Margaret all worked on the Lilith one, which was like custom made for the show. And just having it all sort of come alive and being able to let everybody else see that too.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'll say is, like, I'm trying to, think, because I'm not trying to diss anyone accidentally or throw any shade, but I think this is the first RP show, live RPG show I had that had like full sets. Actually, the Gauntlet does that too. But like, there is something about seeing like your environment, because you know exactly what you can do. Like, I think seeing the rickety chain fence above the lava with the elves on them really made it easy. Go like, oh, that's the one I pulled down.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
actually, that it came into play is like we would only get the guys that would be flipped when you flipped the set.
There's a huge thing. I totally agree with you, and I think that there's an attitude, and I love theater of the mind combat too. For a lot of people, that's great. What I will say is this: there is an attitude amongst some people that using either battle mats or using like a Roll20 screen or actually having like built sets is like less chill and more crunchy. It is more work, But it is actually, I would say, more chill for your players because it's doing the work of creating this spatial stuff, and it's inspiring you to look at chains, to look at this thing and say, what is that? Can I use that?
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's so much more chill to not have to ask, how many can I get in my fireball?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I think
am I 60 feet away now, or do I need to? Okay. Yeah.
And I feel like it also helps with that trust thing because, you know, like we all trust you. It was like, if we didn't have a set and like, you know, Brennan's like, you stepped on a dick monster, I'd believe him, you know. But like, in these like newer, younger groups, there is like, when you're doing theater of mind stuff, there is that like thing in the back of your mind where you're like, am I out of range? Like, you know, and then also like, if everyone, you know, and I think both ways are great, just I want to establish that. But there is that like heavy lifting of like, we're picturing different things in our head if we're going theater of the mind. If you're like, you enter a room, there's some spikes at the end of it, and there's, you know, one large door, and there's like a pile of bones here. Like, as you explain that, also just, it's hard for you to do the math in your head unless you're looking at it on us.
I know for a fact that there were some specific RP moments that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have those sets. Like Erika looked at the chains and she was like, oh, can I pick up that chain? And that's how we got like the elf balloon and everything. And like looking at that caldera with the lava and everything was just like real. Everybody's like, oh, this is how we're going to play the battle.
She had some Looney Tunes like stepping.
Stepping
across
over
the closet.
closet.
And being able to eyeball the battlefield and go, that's feasible.
And like also the boatman, he wouldn't, you might not have like described the boatman enough to like pique somebody's interest.
Yeah, but as you're looking, you're like, who's not being attacked? Oh.
That boatman. And seeing the pieces of the floor fall away was honestly anxiety inducing.
The other way like this affected me differently than other campaigns is we're all adults now and we have lives and we don't, I am unable to play D&D like I did in college where it was every day, 4 hours and never ending, and like we all fell asleep at our stations and then woke up and did it again. And this was, obviously like we're professionals, but it meant more than that. Like this felt like something I would do anyway, and it was like a forced way to make us return to that time where we could play for 2 solid days straight with as much enthusiasm as we all had for the game, and really just dive right back into like my real memory of what D&D is.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to play D&D on my own for fun for years, since like before I was doing all this, and this felt like that again.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, that makes my goddamn year, my life. I love that. This is the best game in the world, and playing with you guys was an absolute honor, a joy, and a treat. Yeah. Guys, this has been Adventuring Academy. We hope you've had fun and learned some stuff too. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Hey gang, Brennan here. If you dig college humor and want to support what we do, sign up for Dropouts. For the cost of a very big dumpling per month, you'll get videos like this a whole week sooner, to chat with us live in the Dropout Discord, and exclusive content such as Dimension 20.
There are no stupid questions.
Are you my freaking dad?
So sign up for your free trial today. Or don't. Do what you think is right. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I don't even know you. That would be crazy. It was wrong of me to tell you what to do. I'm sorry, and that's on me. I'm ruining the CTA?